Hello, I am Reverend Irene Smith, aka Miss Irene for my young peeps. I am the Bible study teacher, and I want to welcome you to Generationally Speaking, the 21st Century Bible Study. Join me each week at the table with my co-hosts from Gen X, Gen Ys, and Gen Zs as we discuss life victories, struggles, and the issues we all face no matter our age, with the Bible, the scripture, as the final word. My co-host today, who I'm always welcome to greet, is that root coach, Pastor Shamika Oliver. Um, Creating the best you, amen. And then we have Minister James Durham, that cowboy fan. You heard me, cowboy fan. Wow. I don't know how, but he's that cowboy fan. And he is a mentor to boys, young men, older men, inside the church and outside the church, using the Nehemiah principle. And Shamika, Pastor Shamika and I, we are looking forward to the day when we can take those tickets for that Nehemiah men's conference that he's going to host one day. We're just waiting as he continues to work on that book and that curriculum, using the Nehemiah principle to build the best you. Amen. Well, our special guest today is Sister Dominique Briscoe. And how did I meet Dominique, Sister Dominique? Well, one day last week, I was scrolling through Facebook and I was arrested, stopped in my steps. My fingers had to stop moving and stop there and park and listen. This young woman was talking about her experience, her frustration, and the lessons she was learning, and that drive that she was going to keep on going as she had become a self-publisher with a major distributor. And she talked about, and what caught my attention was the subject matter, and that the fact that she was hearing impaired, but I could hear the passion inside of her. And I said, whoo, I have got to have this woman to come on and talk to us about suffering diminished hearing impairment. And she's writing, she was saying, I'm writing this book. And I decided to self-publish, which is a good thing. But she said, when I signed up, I didn't think about there was 27,000 other folk in front of me who were self-publishing with this major distributor. And she said, I tried to give the book away. I gave so many copies away, and then they wanted me to, I'm selling the book for little or nothing. And she decided, listen, I know what I have to say is of value. And I'm going to find there are other ways, and the Spirit of God spoke to her and gave her these other ways. So, Sister, I want to introduce to our audience Dominique Paula Briscoe. And just by way of her biography, she is a hearing disabled author and speaker for the hard of hearing population. She's a native of Washington, D.C. She was raised with a hearing disabled father, and she was born into a family of a disabled grandfather, father, twin uncles, and cousins. She has truly faced the struggles of harboring a hearing loss since birth, and is capable of sharing the hearing loss walk as it occurs both in her childhood and adulthood. With that, welcome, Sister Briscoe. We are excited to have you on today. Minister Durham.
Yes, so Dominique, let's start with your history. Can you share with us your formative years?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I don't always follow. Dominique Briscoe, and it's very nice to be here. Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about growing up.
Okay, so pretty much my childhood, I feel like, was a very special one. It was a hereditary hearing loss, which meant that my family had it. And that's one of the reasons that I like to advocate, is because I don't feel the pressure so much of negative affecting. I feel like it's more of a positive effect. It's a blessing. Within our family, my father, my uncles, grandfather, a couple of cousins, and most dearest and closest to me, my twin sister. So this is a bond that my twin sister and I shared. So growing up, I was a bit of reserved when it came to social settings. My elementary schools and junior high schools. In fact, in elementary school, we had moved to another part of the city, and in this new house was a big, huge book attic filled with books, and that was pretty much my escape. When I was a little girl, I was grounded in books because books allowed me to read, get the full story, not miss anything. They didn't require that I use my ears. They allowed me to escape. So my childhood was really about books. It was about my immediate family and spending time with my family and those who were acceptant. I think as a child, I really was not aware of what was going on. A lot of awareness wasn't there with me at all. It was really living in a world of low volume, because as a child, you've got an audiologist and they have to figure out your hearing loss based on your ability to comprehend and get out those results on the test. And so I think that, as I kept going back to the audiologist, my hearing aids had to be leveled further and further up, meaning there was a need for more and more of the hearing aid and larger volume. So I wonder sometimes if I heard at even the great volume that I should have. Even in, I think, elementary school, pre-K and kindergarten and first grade, I really was not into the swing of the class. I didn't have any friends. My sister was my friend. She was in every class that I was in. I think they finally separated my sister and I in sixth grade. And that was very scary for me. And I remember I had a male teacher, and he helped me to kind of pull me into the class more. He cared. And that was the first time in a educational setting that I actually had someone reach out to me and draw me into it. But aside from that, my life wasn't about any friends that I had. It was about sibling time. It was about books. My older sister was very encouraging. My father played a huge part in it. To have a father that understood the disability already, oh, that was a lifesaver. It was a lifesaver because there were many days where I would go to school. By the time second and third grade came, I was understanding what school was. I was getting work done. I was able to do timetables on the board and follow the class, but I still like to talk. So that talking, it cuts out on that child's ability to fully comprehend everything the teacher's saying, because being hearing disabled, we should be given the attention 2 times over. I should be giving, and with talking, you're not, and so my father, a lot of days, he sat me down in the evening, and he talked to me, and he said, baby, I'm going to tell you, you're not slow, you are very intelligent. You just have a hearing disability. He said, so when you get uncomfortable in those classrooms, ask those teachers to move your desk. Wherever they move to, ask them to move your desk. So it was a good childhood, but stepping outside of the house, I had to ask for what I needed. You understand? I was a cheerleader in high school, so I had to ask where I wanted to be placed when we cheered at games. And it was a childhood, too, of learning body language. That's something that I conquered, body language. And in junior high school, I had one girlfriend, Carla. And Carla was my one-on-one friend outside of my sister, who showed me what was going on too, because if you're not hearing, you're not getting it. You don't know that Pierre did that today. You don't know that Davin did that today. You sit at a lunch table and you just look and everybody's laughing. But when I finally received Carla in junior high school, she was such a blessing because she always came with me and she said, Dominique, come and be a pom-pom girl with me. I said, how am I going to dance in front of everybody if I can't hear? But when I tried it, Carla pulled me in and she showed me some moves. And I saw that because the volume was loud with the dancing, everybody shouted across the room. But the biggest thing is it gave me a chance to see that other people made mistakes. You understand? Like, I made mistakes with my hearing. If I raised my hand and the teacher said, well, I already asked that, Dominique, that kind of made me stop and be hesitant sometimes. But being a pom-pom girl really helped me to see that other people had issues, they had their doubts, they have their ways. And it helped me to see how smart I was because I had to memorize the routines. I had to just really I started to use my intellect more to get me ahead. That's when I started memorizing voices, and people don't really realize that, but that's something that hearing disabled people do a lot. If you have a friend that starts to come around a lot, you want to memorize her voice, because if she starts talking very quickly and you all are into something, and it's not even something you consciously do, it's just something I started to do. The more and more pom-pom girls I was able to know. And so by the time I went to high school, it was a great, I had a great role. I had a great energy of looking at people and body language. And so I did try out for the cheerleading squad, and I interacted great. My teachers were great with it because I started to ask for what I needed. I think the biggest blessing in my childhood was that my parents weren't afraid of it.
Amen.
You understand?
Amen.
Yeah, my family wasn't afraid of it. So when I had cousins, I went over their house and somebody lost their hearing aid at school and we laughed about it. And they said, you can't hear anyway, so it was different. It was not, Dominique didn't hear that, so it was more of a funny acceptance of it. And it was a better way to grow up as I researched all of people who are growing up one person in a house and it's totally unfamiliar to other people. I think that's where my protection came in a family where it was familiar.
I want to commend you because I think that that's what we try to teach our children who are not hearing impaired. Focus. Look at what's going on around you, and you were able to grasp that skill that we struggle with as individuals and parents who are not hearing impaired. So to me, I'm like, no, honey, she doesn't have a disability. She has a gift, and that is absolutely awesome. And if we can learn to celebrate people's differences and see their strengths not as weaknesses, I think that we will have just better relationships with kids in school, and we'll stop talking about each other. I do have a question for you. So growing up in an impaired family and the impact that your teachers had on you, things that they couldn't teach you, but then you learned yourself. How did it really affect you as an adult now? Like, what stayed with you from those moments of being in school?
What stayed with me? My father. If he could accept it, I could accept it. And it's so, my father worked at Pepco, and I felt like that was a very prestigious company. I never went to work with him, but to know he got there, that stayed with me. The biggest thing that stayed with me is the ability, once I had that one-on-one friend, to have one-on-one conversation. When you just talk, I just took to your voice. And so your voice is better easily to decipher than some other people's for me. And so that's what you do. You listen and see how that person talks. You see the, and I don't know all the terminology for audiologists. I don't know that stuff, but I do, you are you're leaning in, you're listening, and you're seeing how you're going to use that. That's what you're doing, especially one-on-one conversation where you can get that ability to communicate in. Now, it's frustrating in a group of people, but as far as my childhood, I think the biggest thing that stayed with me was the voice patterns of people, but also the fact that I could use my eyes in place of my ears. Yes, we all have our senses, but sometimes we have to use one sense for another. You know, I don't turn my lights off in my house until I'm absolutely done with everything. I don't walk around a dark house because I need my eyes to be 200%, because my ears are, you know, very limited. And so I think that's the biggest thing that stays with me. But I think that's something that any hard of hearing person would say that they do. And so if you are communicating with a hard of hearing person, step in front of them. Remember, their eyes are their shield. They're their protection. So that's the biggest thing from childhood, my eyes.
Do you feel that your father, because he poured into you, that you are more confident of who you are as an adult?
You said because he did what?
Because your father poured into you, that you are more confident as an adult?
Yes, and to have somebody to go to who's already gone through the entire life scope and can tell you, yeah, baby, as a teenager, it gets difficult because all your friends don't always understand. You know, he had gone through every journey of life. He goes through the journeys before I get there. You know, even now when I look at him and he's in his 60s, I know what I need to prepare for it. That's a lot of protection if you can look at it that way and receive it and have a great relationship with that person. And if you don't have that in your household, get it in some friends, get groups, because those people are going to help you to see the power in yourself, to see the optimism, to see hope. And so, yeah, my father, he had a huge dealing in it, because my self-esteem is great. And it's primarily because he said, and this phrase stays in my mind, and it doesn't sound very intelligent, but he said, baby, you're not dumb by a long shot. And that stays in my mind all the time. It's nothing that I don't have to reaffirm anything. It just stays there.
Amen. So when
You know, it's
Sister Dominique, when you went on the job, when you went to work, what was it? What were the obstacles that you had to overcome in the work environment?
The work environment was definitely a challenge for me because I wanted to be in business. And from what I had seen with my father, he was always just under an employer. And so an employer and his employers provided hearing aids, and they gave that protection. And so with myself, I was a teacher. After I finished college, my high school principal actually pulled me from the HR resources list of DC public schools. And he said, I want you to come and be a special ed teacher because I know you're going to be great for this. And I was a special ed teacher for 5 years, and I taught students with disability. And I really will say to this day, it was the greatest job I ever had. As a teacher, you control your classroom. You know, we shut the door because my children get loud. And as I think about it, I never told them, you all are really loud, because I didn't mind it. You know how a teacher keeps saying that? I was not that teacher, but at the same time as special ed children, they had fragile self-esteem where you don't want to holler at them. You want to make it a very loving environment. And so I think in those 5 years, I'm pretty sure I've reached a lot of my kids. And I did leave that, and I went into real estate. And there I found the ability to build referral systems. I learned that when people referred me, after 2 years and I built up the business, that they often said, Dominique is hearing disabled, but she's going to do a great job. And so when I sat and I had a consultation with them, they said, oh no, Kiera told me you had this, Dominique, but we want you as our agent. And so that just, the pressure is lifted on me. You understand? I go in and I tell them how I would rather you send me an email, and I would rather you text me, you know, and then after a while, the text industry saved me too with my business. And so I'll say after that, real estate, I went back, the real estate market fell, and I became a teacher assistant for a little while. And that is when I truly learned that my father was at a good company and that I was not. And that is where it matters where you work when you have a disability. You don't want to go into a company that is learning and placing their equal opportunity and employment guidelines in place off of you. You want them to already have them in place. You want that, and that will give you the upside for them to know, what can I do for your hearing disability? They become comfortable with it. But when you come into a company, and what happened with me, and why I call it a bad experience, is that this company, I was a teacher assistant, and the teacher came back from maternity leave. She didn't know me, and she just did not want to work with a hearing disabled assistant. And so she began writing everything down on stickies. And me personally, I just did not make a fuss of it, but it hurt too. I didn't make a fuss, but it really was demeaning and demoralizing. I didn't make a fight, but the assistant principal came to me and she said, I need you to do a mediation with me. I need you to sit with me because what you're going through is not right. Some people around the building have been telling me what's going on. And so we sat and had this meeting. And after that, I realized the power that I really did have in that place, even though I didn't let them know I needed this accommodation. When they found out about it, it wasn't that the school had anything in place. This particular assistant principal had something in place. You know?
With that thought in mind, is that how did you get to wanting to write this book?
You said, what was your question?
How did you get to the point of wanting to write a book? Writing a book for
you saying, how do I want to convey that in a book?
Yes, how are you your book that you're writing, the book that you are writing, what is the purpose of that book?
You know what? This book is about life coping strategies. And I want people to know that you have a choice to be an entrepreneur or to work for someone. There is a way that even with a hearing disability, you can structure your business. In fact, you have more leniency in your business. You understand? And I want people to understand this, and it's simple as this. In a government or private company, you are a liability, period. In your own company, you're an asset. You know, or in your own company that is such as a real estate role, it was not about my disability at all. It was about sales on the board. You know, I received as much push-pull rewards as the next person. In fact, because you are an asset to them, and if they find that you've got a gift for real estate as they did, they're going to push you along. They're going to say, what do you need? They're going to say, oh no, that client shouldn't do that. I'll call that client, or I'll get on top of that co-op agent. You just have, it's the way that people receive you is just a bit different. And so that's one thing that's covered in the book. It's not covered a lot, but my primary goal is to offer some coping strategies and to help them to see someone who's not looking at a disability and affecting her so negatively. Because when I look out and when I see people and I hear them talk about it, it's my hearing disability is this. I got this. I didn't hear this. My boss said this. and I'm just saying to myself, what was the plan when you decided to work for that company? You understand? Or do you know what Equal Opportunity Act is? Do you know what that is? And so that's what the book is getting. It's really about. It's about shining some light on different areas of your life. It actually takes you from childhood through adulthood. But at the end, it's about making your circle. It's about building a circle around you of trustworthy, respectful people.
I like your book. And I always say, you know, to people who I coach privately, turn your disability into power.
Yes.
Turn it into power. You can use what you have. I know it's a struggle. I know that it hurts, but that is the main thing that is going to help make you money, give you influence, and help somebody else to do the same exact thing. Do not sit on what you feel is defeating you. That's why you have it, so that you can show the world around you that you can be more than what you might be labeled as. So I commend you.
Thank you
for going forth in this industry that tells you that you can't, to show them that you can.
Right. And you know what? And thank you. And I know that in a book we can receive every word. So I'm not the only hard of hearing person that feels like this. Like, wow, in this book I don't miss anything. And so that is the perfect angle. Some people have said, have you loaded onto Audible? I have to figure out Audible because that's my ear. But right now it needs to be put onto a paper where a person can use their biggest sense, their strongest sense, and that's reading. And even, like I said, even when I went to write the book, I had to really think about my childhood. And I thought about how my entire scoping strategy was reading and withdrawing from the world until I had that friend who held my hand, who did one-on-one and pulled me into the world with her. So there are some people who are developing this hearing loss 20, 30, 40, and 50, not in childhood. And so they are withdrawing from the world. And they will know that, hey, you think about who in your life is your friend.